Nick, firstly, bud, I just want to take this opportunity. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Yeah, our time difference is massive, so I know taking
Yeah.
time out of your busy schedule is always a difficult one. But firstly, our first question is, who is Nick outside of the lens behind the hunt?
Man, I wish I had kind of a big mystery for you that there's like a whole nother person, but it's not really much different. There's the Nick that likes to film and be outside and go do adventures, and then if there's let's say there's no lens behind the hunt involved, and I'm still going out doing adventures, having fun, hiking, hunting, fishing, and kind of spending that time with family in the outdoors and trying to disconnect. I think for me at this stage, social media's busy, right? It's a lot of work. And then I think when I put Lens Behind the Hunt behind me, I'm doing the same things, but I've got no cell phone, in my pocket. I've got nothing. I'm trying to really be present in the moment. So pretty much same person, just a little less connected, I would say.
So, when was that realization? I mean, for those of you that haven't, well, for the guys that haven't followed your story along the way, what got you into actually filming your own hunts? I know you come from a background of hunting and all that. What was the light switch that just got you into absolutely enjoying this passion of yours now, and why? Why is the big question for me?
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like I'm super fortunate because when I was younger, at the age of 14, it was like I decided at that age that like I could do this and I want to do this. I grew up in the Midwest in Wisconsin. I was a whitetail tree stand, just addicted. 365, it was my life, right? Like my dad grew up hunting, his family grew up hunting, and like I was just immersed with it since I was a kid. But I would always be watching Sportsman's Channel and Outdoor Channel, and I was like, man, like I could do this. I want to do this, and literally started teaching myself at the age of 14 how to film and edit. Like I just got lucky that I knew that early on. Some people don't know what they want to do for their entire life until they hit, 30, 40, 50 years old, right? I knew at 14 years old, this is what I want to do. And I started working on it immediately.
Nick, the curious part about this whole conversation for me, and I've had conversations now with guys in the industry here in South Africa. I've gone on my own little expedition. I've invested a hell of a lot of money into camera equipment and all this sort of stuff. There was a point in my career where something really resonated with me, and I think it's stuck with me now. Is I did a podcast. One of my actual very first episodes of the podcast was with a guy by the name of Stephen Townley Bassett. We spoke about cave paintings and bushman paintings, and the rituals about what went beyond that. Do you feel that filming hunts and being a part of somebody else's adventure is kind of like a primal, let's not say instinct, but a primal habit that we've incurred over the many, many decades and years and all that sort of stuff? Because I think storytelling has become so authentic and so important now, especially in today's modern age with social media and all that.
Yeah, I think for me, I definitely feel the need to be a part of it. Like I miss it when I'm not out there. And then when I'm there, I think there's a couple different things that go through my mind. It's like I feel fortunate to be there. I feel fortunate to witness things most people never get to witness in their whole life. Um, and I think, yeah, you could call it primal or just, that deep down feeling, however you feel like you need to be there. And like this is, soothing for the soul. We all know what hunting does to us for, the mental side and the soothing for the soul. And it's like, I think you just want to be there and do that more and more because of how it makes you feel. And of course, there's misery and, all that fun stuff. But without the misery, you wouldn't have the good. So, I think there probably is that deep down primal, you could call it, desire to be out there. But yeah, for me, it's like, it's just part of who I am. It's my DNA.
For you, that I like to think of it as an extremely important role in promoting the hunting industry. For you, what are some of the challenges that you find out there that, I mean, especially guys who are doing films and all that sort of stuff, come across? I mean, obviously there's a couple of the obvious ones, but for you, what is that make or break kind of storytelling do's and don'ts that you have to, navigate around so that you can tell the story as authentically as possible?
I think for if I would compare like a new guy to where I am today, it's the professionals slow it down. The professionals slow the process down. They aren't a fly on the wall just filming what's going on. They're trying to like field produce and hey, can we talk about this? Hey, can you say that line again? Hey, give me a talking hit on this, right? Like we actually try to tell the story through the lens at a high level because if it's a guy on the fly, that's I call it fly on the wall. If he's just filming what's happening, let's say he just doesn't talk ever and he just films what happens, right? Like people might be like, "Oh, that's really authentic." But the problem is when you're filming what's happening and not getting certain intimate shots or intimate details, you're actually missing what's happening, right? Our job is to tell a story at a high level, so sometimes we need to slow it down to get these amazing walking shots, right? Like, go 200 yards from me and go across this mountaintop and walk back and then walk back the other way, right? And it's like, that still is authentic storytelling because we're getting the best and the coolest shots that people still see on the hunt, but it may be hard to tell that through the camera. You know what I mean? You know the difference, right? Like, it's I don't know. It's such that back and forth of like what can you control versus what's naturally happening. And I think the higher end films are somewhat a little bit more controlled chaos, you could say, right? You're not going to ever control the hunt, but I think slowing it down, field producing a little bit, and then getting what's actually happening, right? Because a lot of stuff you miss if you're a fly on the wall, and you might have to go back and like, hey, can you re-talk about that? Or hey, can you talk about this elk you're looking at, right? Versus a guy that doesn't field produce just kind of films what's going on and you actually miss a lot of the details. The small details are actually the major part of the film, as I think what the newer guys are missing.
Nick, before we get too much further into this conversation, could you tell us some of your credentials, some of the films you've done, who have you worked for, who have you been around, who are the most important guys out in the industry that you've been fortunate enough to hold the camera behind of and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, sure. So I've been filming hunts fortunately for the last 20 years. I started at age 14. I'm 30, just about to turn 34 now. And I've been doing it professionally since I was 19. So at age 19, I got hired for my first TV show as a shooter editor. It was a small show in the Midwest. But since then, I've gone out from being full-time with shows to starting my own business in 2017 called Crooked Canyon Productions. Man, through all the years filming Crooked Canyon, clients like RMEF, SCI, NWTF, Renovation Hunters on Outdoor Channel, Greg Ritz Hunt Masters on Outdoor Channel, Pursue the Wild with Christy Titus. I've done films for Yeti and, companies like Night Force and Loophole and Grizzly. And I mean, there's lots under the rap sheet, but my main bread and butter is hunting films, hunting TV shows, that Sportsman's Channel, that Outdoor Channel, and then now more digital these days as well. So I've been just fortunate to travel the world over the last 16 years, and it's been crazy. So the transition now, how we met, is through Lens Behind the Hunt. So when I first started at age 19, or 14 all the way back then, there's no resources out there for guys to understand how to film a hunt at a high level. How do you even get started? How do you actually make money doing it? And then how do you tell a hunting film story at a high level? And so I've been doing this for a long time, and I was like, you know what, enough's enough. Someone needs to start a community around this, which is no easy feat, as you know. It's like, when you first start, you're like, cool, I get 2 likes and no comments or no views, or right? Like it's hard to start a community around something. It's like, now's the time to do it, endure the pain to start it, and now it's finally picking up and having a lot of fun. But and I've been really pouring my heart out into the training side of training guys how to film hunts at a high level and make a paycheck doing it.
Yeah. Do you find that there's a lot, because it's such a high competition space? Do you find like that there's a lot of animosity amongst the videographers and all that? Because something for us in the hunting space here in South Africa, especially with the professional hunting, of course, everyone wants to try and be the best professional hunter out there. But I somehow get the sense of the more competitive we are, the more we jeopardize the industry as a whole, because we're always trying to backstab one another. With your approach, the way I saw it from an outside looking in, and the reason why I really enjoy your content and all that is that you are so willing to help the next person next to you. And is that not a risky business? I mean, being, like I said, in a bit of a a high demand space, and there's a lot of you guys out there. Is that not something where you sharing too many tips and tricks that make you authentic to yourself?
I love this question. So, for at least the US market of hunting camera guys, hunting filmmakers, your whole success here in the US is proximity to other camera guys in the industry. Now, most people that are maybe getting into it or unaware think of like, okay, well, a fellow hunting cameraman is probably my competition, right? Like, oh, I don't want to give him tips and tricks and how to make more money and how to be successful. And I would totally flip that script, because the more we help guys out, the more that we can be a community, you're actually more successful. And I'll tell you why. Because camera guys hire other camera guys. My referral chain comes from 50% of other camera guys. And here's how it works, right? Let's say I have 4 or 5 buddies that all film hunts. Okay, they have all their own contracts. When a guy comes to them and says, hey, can you film this hunt, these dates? He looks at his calendar. He's like, oh, shoot, I'm booked. That TV show host goes, well, who else would you recommend? Man, I got Nick. Nick's freaking amazing at this. I love working with him. He does good work. Here's his name. Here's his number. Give him a call. Rings me up. Hey, so-and-so sent me. Do you have these dates free? Yep, I do. Cool. Trip is booked, right? Like, I call it the hidden hiring market within the industry, because nobody knows how this works. And it's like, proximity to other camera guys in the industry is actually your key to success. It is the opposite to look at them as competition. And if that's like one thing I could drill into anyone's head that's new, is don't look at other guys as competition. You want to be best friends and surround yourself with, 4 or 5 plus good dudes, because eventually you're going to get busy. And then you're going to have to send other people on trips to, keep that client or to keep the edits coming back in house. And you need people that you can trust. So I love when people bring this up, because it's my favorite. They're like, why are you helping people? Why are you doing this? Why are you sending people jobs? It's like, buddy, 50% of my work comes from referrals, and it's guys that I've hired and they've hired me. And so it's fun to talk about, because nobody really realizes that.
It's it's interesting, and that's why I said, like, I was so drawn to your content because of that aspect, because you were willing to help. Because like you said, I mean, here I am. I'm a South African PH. I've been a professional hunter for like 14 or 15 years now, and I've wanted to tell my own stories, right? And as much as I love the guys and the way they work here in South Africa, I just couldn't afford to pay them to be my camera guy as a personal camera guy for the whole season, right? And of course, bigger gigs came up, and you know, just it is a reality of life. But I was like, hey, well, why not learn on how to do this myself? Yes, it's going to take me a boatload of money to try and invest in this little expedition, but if it works, it works. And with the podcasting and stuff, fortunately, I had a bit of gear, and that's where it all started off. But where I was really drawn to you is that there were so many great questions that I had that you were answering without me having to ask the questions. I mean, your quick snippets on Instagram and all that sort of stuff. I mean, the one, it was almost like a Netflix series. I just lay in bed the one day while I just binge watched all your content, and I was just
Right on, man.
I was just
Love it.
I was just like, this is just so valuable in the industry, not just from a videography point of view, but it's also just a different approach to the hunting industry as a whole. And I think more of us need to start doing that. But what I wanted to ask you is, with the popularity of filmmaking and telling the story and social media, like mentioned and stuff, are there guys out there that are stretching this a little bit too far? I've had podcasts, conversations around campfires and all that sort of stuff where, yes, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of the stuff has to be recreated. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to hunt the Tom Mirandas, the Keith Warrens, and all that sort of stuff, where I
Yeah,
realized
amazing.
behind the scenes very quickly you had to recreate a lot of the stuff that was missed, because, like you said, it's those opportunities, right? But in your guys' industry, with it being so lucrative, look, it's not a very lucrative industry here in South Africa, but we'll get into it a little bit later. But with the American model being so lucrative, like you said, with sponsorship deals from Yeti, are the guys taking the storytelling a little bit too far and taking it out of hand, from girls in bikinis to, extravagant ways of promoting gear and trying to get those sponsorship deals?
I think the hunting industry, luckily, is very good at filtering out the inauthentic, poser, unoriginal guys. So you may see them come in, you may see them come in for a year or two and be like, who is this guy? You know, why is he acting this way? What's he doing? And I bet you fast forward that guy's career 2 years, a year, 3 years maybe, and he's chewed up and spit out. Because one thing this industry still demands is a lot of authenticity. Now, it doesn't mean that someone can't come in and stir the pot a little bit or do some crazy things that are maybe against the norm, which is fine. You know, getting weird gets you views and makes you stick out further. Like, I get it, right? But at the end of the day, when you're sitting around a campfire with that person, are they genuine? Are they real? Are they an actual hunter in this industry? Do they know what they're talking about? Or is it, I think back to this stupid show, For Love or for Likes, right? Are they in it for like, which is just an awful show, but so funny. Are they in it for authenticity, the love of it to actually help, or are they in it just to make a name for themselves and produce inauthentic content, which me and you can always tell that, right? We have the eye, we have the hunter eye. If someone produces content, you're like, that's not how you hold the bow like that, or that arrow shouldn't look like that, or that, that rifle scope is, you can just tell the little things, right? And so I think those guys end up getting chewed up and spit out quicker than you would actually guess. Part two to that is the guys that come in that do that content are likely not getting paid. They might seem like they're getting paid, right? It's social media. Oh my gosh, we're so popular. We've got these partners, and someone might send them a rifle for free, a bow for free, right? And all of a sudden they're posting content with it, and they're sponsored, but they got it for a free bow, right? They're not getting paid 20, 30, 40, 50, 100K as a partnership because the authenticity isn't there, right? There's so many ways to like fake it and be like, oh man, look at this or look at this. And you're like, that isn't real. Looks real. It's not.
Yeah. And that's where you need to draw the line, right? So there's been a lot of moments out there where you run out of content as a hunting, and this is where it's going to lead into my next question is, as a hunter, it's very seasonal, right? So you run out of content quite quickly, especially if you've had a blockbuster season. You've put you've content dumped for 3-4 months of the year, and then you hit that quiet period and you're like, now where am I going to draw the content from? So my question to you is that how does one overcome that? Especially from a filmmaking point of view, with B-roll footage and all that sort of stuff. Is that something that we need to start looking at throughout the season and start saying, okay, well, we can utilize this in a later space, or this might be good as a reel, or this is telling a story in a completely different way. We can use it when we've run out of content ideas. So because a lot of us, we panic, and I call it panic shooting. Often when guys talk to me about social media content and stuff, and I'm like, you panic about putting out content because the old Gary Vaynerchuk's theory of you need to post content at least once a day, every day. You run out very quickly. So yeah, sorry, I'm waffling on you, but so my question to you is that, are there any tips out there so that you don't have to fake it to make it? Are there ways we can look out in the bush when doing B-roll footage and all that sort of stuff that we can capture and utilize when the season is quiet?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different directions. I think, for one thing, people really overthink social media. You'd be surprised at what your viewers would like to see. And that could be your day-to-day life, right? Like, if just because you're posting hunting content doesn't mean you can't post a video in your backyard of you doing something else or talking about a different subject. Part two to that is, I get it. It's, oh my gosh, what am I going to do for content? One post a day for the whole year. To give you an idea, I post 3 times a day, every day, across 5 different platforms, which is why I went from 0 followers to about 5,000, in a matter of a couple months. So that content train is insane, right? Because that's so much. But I also think people overthink it like, oh, once I burn that footage, I can never use it again, right? And I mean, there's so many different ways that you can repurpose content you've already done. Like, tell me a social media post you watched 5 days ago. Can you
Yeah.
remember one?
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know.
Like,
It's
literally,
crazy.
if you had 30 videos, you could recycle them every single month, add new hooks, re-edit them, and just repurpose it, right? Like, guys think once you put it out there, it's one and done. And guess what? I completely disagree with that because, for one thing, if you give it another shot to put it out there and maybe you re-edit it slightly, add a different hook to the front, something like that, it may go bigger the second time, right? And so I think of like, yeah, I mean, even what I'm sitting on now, I could probably stop making content and just restart from what I posted back in December and keep going, right? Like, and when I look at content to produce for the next month, I'm actually going to go through and I'm going to look what subjects did the best for me. And I'm actually going to reproduce videos on those same subjects, just say it in a different way or a different, way to phrase it, right? Because sometimes people need to hear things 2 or 3 times just to understand it. But for guys posting hunting content, man, I mean, you've got not only like the normal footage, but then you can turn it into like a meme and then you can add different hooks to it. And there's also cool templates of like, the inspirational quotes that people are reading underneath the footage that you can add, right? Like you could take one piece of content and you could create 3 or 4 different pieces out of that and run it through the year, right? So if you just recorded 100 days of content and recycled it every 100 days with different hooks and different looks, no one's going to have a clue, right? Now, so I would say stop overthinking it. Film more than what you think people would actually like to see, because if they're invested to you and your page, if they like you as the attractive character of that page, they want to see more from you. It doesn't have to be all polished and you know, professional. The best video clips that go viral are usually the opposite. They're like the crappy footage that's a little shaky, that isn't good quality, and you're like, man, this video did better than this amazing shot I posted of, this zebra walking through the woods with my good camera, and I got a stupid cell phone clip of me like starting out far and zooming in on it, and that one did way more, right? Like it, and you know it if you've posted enough content. So don't overthink it, just send it, man, because you never know which ones are going to hit too.
That that is brilliant, and the problem with that is I get so pissed off with it because I'm like, why did I spend so much money on all this fancy equipment? And yeah, my shitty cell phone camera has taken a crap video of two springbuck fighting, and that, I mean, I'll never forget one of my big viral videos that went on YouTube. I got over 700,000 views on it. Was me baiting for crocodile in the Natal province. And all it was we had shot a leg of on the day before, and we pretty much skinned it out because it was going to be a full body mount. And we utilized that carcass as bait. And that video went off the charts. And all it was on a shitty little iPhone. And I had my Sony FX30 there, right there, and I did the exact same video and nothing happened. Whereas my iPhone footage was going off the charts. So I completely understand. But
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to ask you on this particular point is something I've picked up. I mean, I've had the podcast now for a little less than 7 years. And one thing I've picked up quite a bit in South Africa, more particularly, is that guys get extremely camera shy, and especially if you shove a mic in front of them, they get the conversation becomes very difficult for them to talk to. And we've got some incredible hunters that I would love to have on the podcast, but the first thing they say to me is that, oh, I don't want to speak in front of the camera, or I'm not. How important is camera confidence when telling a story? Is that something we need to get used to, or is your theory behind it just, shoot and post type of thing?
Are you talking with someone that's shy in front of the camera, how to do it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, how that connection between, I think for me, like I said, I've done the podcast for a while now. So for me to talk into a camera is kind of like second nature. You're a lot more confident, put it that way. For a young individual wanting to start his career out and not do the influencing side of things, but just really tell his story on a simple point of view from Instagram to YouTube, all that sort of stuff. Is camera confidence, and how does he get over that hurdle? It took me years. Is there any quick tips for them to look at their camera, look at their smartphone, and be able to be confident or project themselves as a confident person in front of it?
You might not like my advice on this, but I'm going to be honest with you. Suck it up and do it.
Yeah.
Like, there is no other way to, like, I mean, if you look, some guys, like, if I'm interviewing shy people, I'll have them look off camera to me, right? And so, like, okay, if you want maybe a quick tip, have your buddy interview you, you know, with looking camera left or camera right, where you're not staring at the lens. Because sometimes the lens itself, when you're, like, buried in it, all of a sudden your, like, thoughts start to scramble. But if you're having a conversation with someone over here or over here, and you're not looking at the camera, that's a way to do it. You could also have a buddy, you know, some people like to be interviewed. That's another good trick, is hand your buddy 4 interview questions. He goes behind the camera and then he'll interview you. Sometimes that's a little easier, but other than that, it's the reason they struggle is they're self-conscious, right? Like, let's take a deeper dive if they are not camera savvy, or they're like, oh, I'm bad in front of the camera. It's just their own opinion, and then they're nervous about it, and it's just repetition, man. Like, the first time I went out and recorded social content, I got like 4 videos done in 3 hours. I was horrible. I was like, this is the dumbest thing. I was so pissed off. It got dark, so I ran out of time. And I'm like, this was a complete waste of like 4 hours. But then you get better as you do more reps, right? And then you can kind of study and like, oh, I need to smile more or not look, you know, slouching like this. I need to actually sit up straight. And so my advice really is like, you are the problem. You're the one that's shy and you don't want to do it. And I get that. But if you want to go that route, you just got to do it, man. I don't have any great advice other than like maybe the interview side, look off camera. But there's only one way to do it. Get in front of the camera, hit record, and go, right? I mean, literally, yeah. I don't have much to say.
But Nick, on that point, so when you filming individuals, I don't know what your situation is as far as, but as a professional hunter point of view, we get camera guy, well, the hunter comes over, hires a camera guy, and more often than not, it'll be their very first safari and they've never hunted in front of a camera at all, but they're wanting to capture the moment. And a lot of the times, the cameramen, they've been doing this for years, right? And they'll always get, there's always those shots of them getting out the pickup and saying, oh, well, what is the plan now? And you can see the hunter kind of reserve himself a little bit and not quite sure how to approach the camera and all that sort of stuff. Is there any tips from maybe a professional hunter's point of view, like a guide's point of view? Like, how can we ease the situation for the hunter to tell his story or tell his perspective on that a little bit more confident across? I love I love what you just said now about the interview standing off. I did a documentary of a guy who came out who hunted his first animal with me, and he's a cinematic documentary teller, tells about all these really cool things about what's happening in South Africa. And that tip where he sat off just off center to the camera was a huge help for me. I felt a lot more relaxed doing it that way. But yeah, getting back to the point is, what sort of advice can you give to maybe a guide or a professional hunter to help the client be a little bit more camera friendly in front of the camera, especially on the first timers?
Yeah, I actually just answered this question like 2 days ago. This is a great question. My whole goal, because like when I get into a camp, usually we film that night, right? And might be filming some stuff. And if it's a new client, especially if they've never been on camera, I want to get a gauge on how well they're going to do the previous night before we go out. And when I can tell they're shy, my whole goal that night is to become freaking best friends with that person. I'm going to ask them all sorts of questions about their life, right? Like, I want to be, by the time we wake up in the morning, like, dang, that Nick dude, like, he's super fun. He's super funny to be around. Like, we have a good time, right? Because now they're talking to Nick. They're not talking to a camera in the morning. They're talking to a guy that they like, that they trust, and that they're comfortable with. The reason why they don't do well on camera is because they're uncomfortable. But if they're comfortable with me behind the camera, that really lowers their guard big time. And then also how you tee it up. If you're like, hey, Hunter Ralph, when you come out of the truck, walk 10 steps towards the camera and tell me what you're going to do this morning. Now he has to kind of act versus like, okay, let's say you park the truck and he's getting his gear and be like, Ralph, tell me what's the plan today? Like, what are you hoping to happen? Like, it's your first day in Africa, man. Like, what the heck's going through your head? So it's a different way to also phrase it because I want to be like a buddy talking to him. And I actually may take that camera because I run it on a shoulder rig, so usually I'm up here with it. I actually may take that off to the side and have him talk to me alongside of it. So there's a couple different techniques, but my number one thing is to get them extremely comfortable with me, because if they're comfortable with the cameraman being there, their guard is down and they're much more relaxed. So unfortunately, it's harder for like if you have a shy camera guy come in, you could maybe help him give this advice like, hey, I want you to hang out with me and the client all night tonight. It's a weird part of the job, right? Like nobody tells you that's a part of the job requirement, but that is a way to really get them comfortable, because I've filmed plenty of people who are new at this and they just need to like me as a person, and then we're good. Then it's easy.
I really enjoy that. And I love the relationship side of things. And I was going to ask you this question, and how important is, just quickly, do you do a lot of hunts with outfitters and guides and professional guides and all that sort of stuff?
Big
Yeah.
time.
So my number, look, I mean, like I said, I'm very fortunate of the opportunities I've had in my past to be able to hunt with a lot of TV personnel.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things I grasped very quickly, and I was very fortunate about it, was having the understanding of that, the footage is extremely important for the storytelling. So we will get many other opportunities out there if something does go wrong, whether the camera guy bumps a massive twig next to you and the herd starts shooting off or whatever the case may be. But how important now is that relationship between the camera guy and the guard? Because for me, I've always been very fortunate in being calm, being understanding, saying, oh, you know what, bud, don't stress. There's plenty more opportunities coming around. I know in the US, you guys don't have a vast variety of species like we do. So, those opportunities are a lot few and farther between, but it could get quite frustrating from both sides. But how important is that relationship between you and the guard?
Yeah, it's funny, huge. And it's also something that I will do and preface when I get into camp, right? Like, I want to get to know the guide. I want to know if they've ever filmed a TV show before. And then I want to have kind of a little meeting the night before of like, hey, listen, I know you've either done a few TV shows in the past or maybe you haven't done a TV show. And like, I just want you to kind of know my expectations and how, this is usually going to run. And then I'd like to, have a convo to make sure you're okay with that, right? Like, because I need to inform him, especially if he's never been filmed, like, we're going to need to slow things down. You're going to have me say, hey, can you repeat that? Like, I'm going to preface all the things that may get him frustrated of having a cameraman the night before, and I'm going to anchor him with those thoughts of being like, listen, you're probably going to be mad at me because I'm going to have to slow it down a little bit. You're probably going to hate me because I'm going to ask you to redo stuff, right? But like, I'm having that fun personality, that good conversation that kind of brings their guard down, so that when I do this in the field, that they're not frustrated with me. They know it's coming, right? I've anchored them with these thoughts the night before, so that way there's no confusion on how the day is going to go. And so that's kind of my main thing with the guide. Now, I'll always say this phrase too, like, hey, I'm going to do my thing. If I'm screwing up, if you don't want me to be in a certain area, just yell at me. It's not going to hurt my feelings. Tell me to, get back in line. Like, what are you doing out here? Or, don't walk out here, get back. Like, you just yell at me. I'm not going to get mad at you. You can't piss me off. Like, just, it's an open book. We're all here to get a really cool film at the end of the day. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to work my system. If I'm screwing up, tell me, and we will modify it from there. And so just like the client that's shy, I'm an open book with the guide as well. So it's a lot of this is frustrations that, like I was in a camp last August on a mule deer hunt, and the guy, I was in the lodge 3 minutes. The guy sits us down and he goes, if we see a big deer, like, I'm not waiting for you. You can't screw this up. And I just started laughing. He came in hot to me, right? And most guys would be like pissed, or they'd be like kind of back off, like, whoa, dude. And I just laughed. I said, tell me about the last camera guy that was here. Because I know it's coming from somewhere, right? And so he went into all these stories of this guy that was there last. And I said, yeah. I said, I understand. And I said, all of that you just mentioned is not me. I am not that type of guy. And by the end of the trip, he looks at me and he's like, you're a good hunting cameraman. You weren't like the last guy. I'm like, I know. But it's so common because guides get burned by camera guys, right? Like they're too loud, or they, especially the ones that aren't hunters, they usually have an issue with because they don't understand when to be quiet, when they can push it. Just all the instinctual things we have as hunters, they don't really get it. And so, yeah, it's a fun question. I do like when that gets brought up, because usually it's just, what are the horror stories you've been a part of where camera guys have screwed it up, and then here's the expectations this trip, right? Like, it's just that balancing act again.
Yeah, there was a company I was using here in South Africa to do a lot of my filming, and um, I mean they're incredible camera guys, and they even better hunters. But I've got a good friend I hunt fellow deer with every year, Rusty. And if there's a professional hunter out there that hates a camera following, it's him. But he'll often turn around after the hunt and say, "Oh, I'm so glad you got that on film. I'm so glad you got that shot." So yeah, it's all worthwhile in the end. I wanted to pick your brain on the storytelling part of things, and for me, when I started this journey, it was a very important criteria for me. I wanted a specific look. I wanted my storytelling to be a specific way. Look, I come from a very uh, I wouldn't say a hard background, but I've struggled mentally, and I've gone through depression and all that sort of stuff. So I'm a very
Yeah.
soft natured, deep person. So I want to grab emotion out of the hunt as much as possible, because I believe that if you are a hunter, one of the best traits you can possibly have is empathy in a hunt. So the way I wanted my films taken was a more very cinematic shot, hence why I've got a Sony FX30. So for you, South Africa, the film industry here in South Africa, and I've burnt myself before doing this on a podcast, but I don't want to generalize. But for a lot of the episodes I've watched on YouTube and all that sort of stuff, I don't really like the walking behind the hunter type vibe, where and then shooting off and then getting a little bit of a bush in the foreground and you blurred out at the background. I don't really like that all almost essence of just plain straightforward stalking and hunting. Are there particular looks? I'm struggling to find the right words here, so maybe help me out if you can. But for me, I enjoyed the cinematic approach to it. Are there any other LUTs or techniques that a videographer can do to captivate a storytelling, to bring that emotion in, that empathy and all that sort of stuff?
I think it depends on the hunter. When I think back to when my younger days, and I used to watch, who's actually a good friend of mine and a longtime client, I used to watch a gal on TV called Christy Titus, and she did Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation series. And I'm blessed she's a good friend now, but she was always super emotional on her hunts. She would speak, kind of like that when it just hits you in the core as a hunter, like she could relay that on camera. But a lot of the ways she relayed that wasn't in the field, it was actually in the interviews that they would use for an interview and a voiceover. And so I think that there's some hunters out there that can relay the emotion while they're in the field. And then there's some that you might need to sit down and really like interview them and kind of peel back the layers and the onion a little bit, so to speak, and like really get down to that deep core for them to really open up. Because sometimes it might be reserved to open up on camera. It could look at that as like, oh, I don't want to appear weak on camera because I talk so emotional about this. So I think if I'm trying to film a really emotional story and I don't feel like they've been emotional in the field, then I will sit them down and really try to get that emotion. Even if they never see a talking head on the show, at least I can use that for voiceover, because that can always help for like cool intros or transitions. But I also think it helps, or helps going in with a plan and the field production side. Like, okay, what's our backstory? Can this turn into an emotional hunt? Or is he here, I imagine clients from the US are just there to kind of, for lack of a better term, maybe whack and stack. They're going to come for 5 days. They're going to shoot 7 to 10 animals, have some fun. And that's probably their main emotion, is the fun, right? Like they're just there to have fun. So if you're trying to get any other emotion out of it, you're probably going to have to, and they're going to be nervous, so they're not going to open up on camera. But you may have to like sit them down at night along the fire, maybe even have a drink in them to kind of loosen them up a little bit and just talk about life, right? Like you could just put the camera on sticks and hit record. And you could sit there and just have an hour-long conversation with 2 microphones on, and they're going to forget that camera's there. So part 2 to that is also the shots you get, because if you want that emotional footage, you want those close-ups of the eyes and the faces and the reactions and, maybe the animal's antlers or horns turning, or, the hand kind of coming down it, or, right? Like those emotional moments you need to be able to shoot really well, and likely at some sort of slow-mo footage, so like you can really amp it up. I think for when I try to build out an emotional section in a hunt, it's very like dependent on the music, the cinematic music, and the build-up, and then the shot selection as well. So there's kind of 2 parts to it. The emotional shots you need to get in the field, and then if you want that person to emit that emotion and they're not good at doing it in the field, then an interview style where at least you could take their voiceover would be another good tip.
That's such a great way of looking at it, because I've kind of cottoned on to that whole. I'll actually do a whole interview about the previous hunts. I've just done one now where I unfortunately wounded a common reback, and we never found him. And I was very hesitant to put that footage on YouTube, or put it out there regardless, because I think it could. Well, I thought it would have got a lot of backlash from it, but I think because I had time to tell the story and tell my emotions about it, because it's gut wrenching, it's crap, for lack of a better word. It's terrible. So, but it's part of the hunt. It's part of the storytelling. Sure. So I felt it was my kind of responsibility to be able to do that. So I was very lucky. So I wanted to ask you on that point, is there anything out there that, especially youngsters coming into the industry today, and I'm sure you've touched on this on a podcast or one of your Instagram reels, but is there something that you guys as videographers try and stay very far away as far as ethics is concerned? For me, one of the big things as a professional hunter, especially when I'm taking photos and stuff, I always try and remove as much of the blood as possible and all that sort of stuff. From a filming point of view, I know a lot of the time it gets difficult, but what are some of the don'ts or the unethical parts you try and veer away from? Like maybe gutting an animal is not probably it's not probably the best footage to put out there on social media or YouTube or whatever it may be.
Yeah. I think it's a little subjective. I think it depends on the TV show, the host, and the audience. Because there are some shows that will gut that sucker and, take out the tenderloins and then cook them right there, and they just show the whole experience. And then there are shows that keep it very clean, and they don't show a lot of blood. They won't show it gutting or even quartering an animal and packing it out of the mountains, right? And so the responsibility part is interesting, because I basically shoot everything, and then I will let them decide what their limit is, right? It's not my job to go in and tell them, this is as ethical, this isn't. Now, that might be kind of odd to hear out of my mouth, but I'm not going to call off someone shooting an animal at 600 yards with a gun because I feel it's unethical, right? Like, I'm there to tell the story that they want me to tell. Now, do I have my own personal ethics? Absolutely, right? But it's different when you're trying to tell someone what ethics is on a trip, because it's not necessarily your place. Because what is ethics? Ethics is a personal opinion, right? And it's an opinion. There's no like line where it's like, this is ethical, this is not. Now, have I filmed some stuff that I think is not ethical? Sure. Unfortunately, it's just the name of the game. You never know who the show host is. And if I do go on a trip where I feel like some things don't align personally with me, I just won't ever go on another trip with those guys. I'll just turn down, hey, I'm not interested, and I'll kind of cut them as a client. The amount of time that's ever happened is very rare. So I think we have a responsibility to tell the ethical, real story. But as far as like not shooting something, they could get mad that you didn't film gutting the animal. They could get mad that you did film it, right? But at least they have that footage and they can use it if they want to. And so it's not necessarily my place to be like, I'm going to only film this and not this, because I want to do the best job for them. And I don't know what their final product may entail, the final film, right? And so it's kind of a hard line, right? Like there's no good answer for that question. But like I said, if they don't align personally with my ethics, then I just won't shoot for them again. Sometimes you just don't know going into a hunt and you're like, this guy doesn't really match who I am as a person, and that's okay. And I'll move on, right? So it's just the way it is sometimes.
Yes, it's such a difficult line to draw. And I've often tried to figure out how to navigate that, because you're right? I mean, there are things where at the end of the day, we are all hunters. So yeah, like you said, it's a personal opinion about ethics, and if it doesn't align with you, who are you to go and slander or talk shit about the guy over whatever it may be?
And it could be cultural differences, right? Like there's cultural differences all over the world that really offend people. I mean, really offend people, but it's been culture for them for hundreds of years. Who am I to tell you that that's not okay? That's, I don't know. I'm very open-minded, and the guys that are closed-minded, who draw a line, it can be kind of rough sometimes. And that's also the beautiful part about this career, is you get to see crazy things all over North America or Africa or wherever you travel to go film that you didn't see coming, that maybe you felt awkward about, but it was incredible just to witness this culture do this or see this happen. And you're like, oh, this is kind of weird and crazy, but like, this is also just how it is. And like, embrace it, right? That's kind of, for me, it's just a teaching moment.
Yeah, like I said, it's just such a difficult one. And often you can see, especially camera guys, they fight with their own inner demons on a lot of the time out in the field about whether they should capture this or not. And you've seen it oftentimes before. I mean, I remember, we've got a big thing here with hunting off pickups, the guys shooting animals off the back of a truck. I mean, we've had some well-known hunters in America coming over here and using the hood of a vehicle to line up animals. And, at the end of the day,
then you go redo it. Go redo it like you saw them, and then go set up the sticks. Yeah. Been there, done that, man.
So I mean, you can definitely see the camera guys always fighting those inner demons in their heads, whether they should record this or not. But so just Nick, just for me to understand quickly, I've been, the hunting shows I've been on have always had it's the main host, and then they do everything from except the actual filming. They do everything from, they've got an editor, they've got a script writer. There's all these sort of things. A lot of the stuff you're doing, are you producing yourself? So you would go out there, pretty much shoot all the content, edit it. Are you a one-man show, or is there a team behind a lot of the guys that you are filming for at the moment?
Yeah, my most common contract is the filming and editing role. We call it the shooter editor role, where I'll go out, I'll shoot the series, and then I have that contract and I bring it back in house. I do have guys that, like I said, I have kind of my top 5 guys that I film, that I contract out with, and then I have like my top 5 editors too. So, these days I'm more of like a logistics manager. Like, oh, a trip comes up, cool, I'll send that guy. Okay, that edit comes back in-house to me, and then I send it to this other guy who's an editor for me, right? Like, I'm just kind of the logistics manager these days. But as far as like the most common role in the industry is usually the one-man band of shooter and editor. Second most common would be filming only, where the show has its own editor. Might be a production house or something like that always gets the edit, and they just hire camera guys. And then your third most common is the editor only, where, I might have a buddy that shoots a series, but he doesn't like editing a lot. So that series will come back to me under my umbrella and I'll be the editor. But that shooter editor role is usually always the most common. And it's fun because you get to edit your own footage and tell your own stories, and I like it.
One of my reasons for starting this adventure, other than all the emotional things behind it and wanting to do a storytelling, was trying to recreate a part of the hunting industry in South Africa that I feel has a huge scope for potential growth, and that is, like I said, filming and advertising and TV shows and all this sort of stuff. Because I've been very fortunate for haven't done it in the last 2 years, but every year since 2015, I've been fortunate enough to go over to the States, and you can just see. I mean, I go to all the SER shows, Dallas Safari Club, and you can see all the production crews and guys walking around with cameras, and just how much money is in the hunting industry in the States. And I believe here in South Africa, it's very much the same. It's just we haven't, for whatever reason it may be, we haven't been given that opportunity. So for us sitting this side of the pond, it's very difficult for us to see how you can make a career out of it. So just tell us a little bit more about the American version of it. How lucrative is it for you to do this full time? And then what are other avenues other than hunting can a videographer look into, especially a youngster getting into it? What are other avenues can he look at? You mentioned like doing adverts for Yeti and all these sort of things. So what are the other add-ons you can do as a filmmaker?
Let me start with the pricing question first. I'm going to actually interview you on this a little bit. What's the average guy getting paid per day to come out and film someone from the US?
Yeah, in South Africa.
Yeah. So if I come from the US and I want my hunt filmed at your place and you hire a camera guy, what are you paying them per day?
300
if you're comfortable
to 350.
with asking.
Yeah,
Okay.
300 to 350 a day.
And then what does that edit look like for time-wise and cost-wise? Are you creating a 5-minute video for the guy and sending it back to him and it's, this much money? Or what does the deliverable look like?
Okay, so I'm not going to give my situation because mine's a little bit different to the average. But the average guy coming out here, it probably takes about 6 to 8 weeks of editing time, and then after that, he, depending on how many species or how many animals he's shot, is roughly between a 25 and a 30-minute video. He doesn't get any of the raw footage. He doesn't get any of that sort of stuff. And he gets a repostable link onto YouTube and all that sort of stuff. I'm just speaking from what I know. I know there's a bunch of different structures out there. So yeah, 350, or let's call it, to play it safe, let's call it $300 a day. We'll get you a 20-minute video, and your waiting period will be 6 to 8 weeks.
So the $300 a day is the edit included?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I also love this conversation. Okay. Here's what I would change immediately, okay? Oh, there's so much. Number one, I'd raise your floor. Meaning, you guys are the video industry out there, which this is hard for me to preach because you're going to have to have most people try to switch this, but I would minimum go $500 a day to come out and film, okay? That's what I would change immediately, based on like the US prices. And that filming rate has nothing to do with the editing cost. That is a big no-no that you guys are looping into that. And I didn't really realize that this was an issue with new guys that didn't know, because now with Lens Behind the Hunt, I'm getting these guys that are like, yeah, I'm $300 a day to film a 5-day hunt. I'm like, okay, cool. Like that, nothing wrong with that. What's the edit going to cost you? Oh, well, the edit's included in that. What? In the States, unless you just don't know, 99% of the time, the editing rate is a total separate charge. So I'm going to go out, let's say someone hires me for a hunt, okay? I'm going to go out and here's my day rate for filming. Let's call it $800 a day to go film, okay? When that comes back to me and the client wants a 10-minute finished film, that is a new negotiated price. That has nothing to do with my filming rate. That is a total separate thing because they may want it 10 minutes, they may want it 20 minutes, they may want it 30 minutes. And 6 to 8 weeks of work on that is insane to loop that into your filming only price. So what I would switch immediately, which is why that it doesn't seem that you're going to make a career there or it's not as lucrative, is you need a filming rate and an editing rate. Even if you made it a flat fee. So let's say I'm going to film for $300 a day. Great. It's a great day rate. Your edit on top of that's going to be $5,000. Okay? That is a very reasonable ask for a 20 to 30 minute, kind of reel, highlight reel of what you did down there.
Nick, say that again. How much?
$5,000 at minimum, at least, for the edit. Okay? At least. This is why it's not working for you guys down there, okay? I mean, and that's me kind of going cheap on it. But you guys are a commodity, right? Like, if they have to bring someone from the U.S., this is what it's going to cost them. Listen, if they have to bring someone from the U.S., let's say they hire me to come. Let's split it in the middle. Let's say they hire an intermediate videographer from the U.S. to come down to Africa with them and film. That guy's day rate's going to be $400 to $500 a day. They have to fly him there, pay for his ticket, because all of our travel expenses are always covered. I don't pay a dime when I'm gone. So they're going to have to pay a $2,000 flight bill to get him over there. Then it's going to cost them $5,000 for him to be down there 10 days. So we're already at $7,000 there. Then he's going to come back and be like, hey, I want a 15-minute film, just for my family or whatever. Okay, well, that's going to be at least, depending on who's doing it, $3,000 to $10,000, depending on who's editing that film back in the States. Okay? So that bill he's going to get from someone in the States, and you guys come at $300 a day for 10 days and the edits included, is insane to me. That needs to stop today. Like, today. That is not the same rate.
Sorry, can I stop you there?
I could get pissed and furious about this and preach all day on it. So we can deep dive into it if you want. But do not, starting today, ever loop in your filming rate with your editing rate. Ever. That is a different negotiated price. Ever.
But, Nick, we're talking about two different economies here. So,
because the client's coming from the same country usually.
Yeah, no. I completely understand that. This topic we can go down a rabbit hole because I've just been lambasted on social media about two different prices for South African hunters and American hunters. Anyway, that's not the conversation. The conversation, is as you need to understand that $5,000 for an edit is what's it? Call it 50.
I know it's quite a bit different for you guys, yeah.
It's close to 100,000 Rand for it. What is it? 20-minute edit or 10-minute edit?
20, yeah.
On a 10-day safari, that will completely change the landscape of the filming industry as far as hunting is concerned. But my question to you is that sustainable? Are hunters really paying those sort of prices in America?
Yes.
And how? I'm
so glad we're having this conversation. This is great.
It's mind-boggling for me because on the one hand, I've just been scrutinized on social media because our daily rate is different to the Americans. Or I mean, the hunting price list is different to an American prices. But
it's a different economy. It's a different dollar. It's a
100%. So I'm just curious if we upped our rates. I mean, it's become a very big thing now in South Africa. It wasn't. I mean, like I said, I've been in this industry now for about 13 years, and because the explosion of social media, because of the explosion of social media, everyone's realized that filming has become such a valuable tool to their business. Because as hunters, we want to share their experience, and I think filming captivates that. But where we've fallen short is that, like I said, it hasn't been very lucrative. And I'm not speaking like I'm probably speaking on the majority side of things. There are a couple of really good companies out there that are making an extraordinary amount of money out of this, and rightfully so. They do some exceptional work. But I I I struggle to think that hunters from America will come over here and pay those sort of prices. And it's mind-boggling for me. Like it's very difficult for me to fathom that they're already paying those sort of prices that side anyway.
Yeah. So who's the problem in this equation?
Well, I feel like it's the South African filmmakers because they made their stuff too cheap straight off the bat.
Problem is your thought belief on it, right? You're just like, there's no way. But also, this is super fun for me because this is why I do this, right? And this is why, if you want to know how someone in the US makes money doing this, like, there's a number I preach online that's somewhat of a lie, and it's a lie on the low end because I get scrutinized for it. I say, you can make 100K a year as a hunting cameraman, hunting filmmaker. Okay, and everyone's like, oh, you're crazy, you can't do that, blah, blah. I made that amount of money like 5 to 7 years ago doing this as an independent contractor. Okay, that number is much, much higher than that because I've been able to build a business around it. But people, just like you, okay, you're going to get scrutinized. The people on social media, you need to block that noise out. You know how many bad comments I get a day on stuff that I post? And I don't know if you've seen it. I need to do another one. I actually screenshot them all and I save them. And then I do a video reading them all out loud on my page. I call it like the haters week or something like that. Because those aren't your customers. You're listening to people who aren't actually paying you to come over there and do that, right? Like you're just listening to the opinion of people on social media, which is the worst opinion to listen to. The ones that give you the negative thoughts because it's just, you already know this. I don't need to preach that. But if you want to know why you can't make it a business in South Africa, why it's harder, that's your answer that I just gave you. That is an example of the US price. So let's say I'll go with my rates that were a couple years ago. Okay, so if someone brings me out to shoot a 5-day hunt, okay? A couple years ago, my day rate was $500 a day, okay? So they bring me out, they pay for my flights, to wherever to get there. And, okay, that trip is going to be $2,500, okay, that I make. Now they're like, Nick, I want a 10-minute short film out of this. Okay, cool. My editing rate is a really weird one. I do it per edited minute. So let's say they want a 5-day filmed hunt and then they want a 10-minute edit. Well, I used to be $300 an edited minute, meaning that 10-minute film was $3,000. Okay? So now that one project sending me for a week of work, and then I can usually turn that in about a week at home, is, $5,500, right, off one project. Okay, and then stacking those projects all year, over and over and over. Like, I at my peak, I'm on the road 200 plus days a year. So I'm not going to pretend like it's easy. But that's what the US market is paying. And especially for guys coming over, it's not cheap to go hunt Africa. And I could rant about this all day. I think there is a market for you to charge higher prices and not loop the day rate. Even if you said, hey, it's a flat $6,000 when you come down here to get your hunt film for a week, just make it a flat fee. It's like, okay, well, cool. That's like 2 animals down there or 1, right? It's $3,000 for filming, $3,000 for editing. You're already making way more than what you just were with the structure you just told me. So even if the $10,000 number scares you, whatever, I would switch it and immediately separate the rates from filming to editing. Today. Yesterday I would do it. And that will already immediately double your revenue and also pay you what you're worth. So that's how you can make it a career in the US because of the pricing structure. And that's just filming hunts. That's not commercial work. That's not brand work. That's not, getting paid $1,500 a day to go out and shoot a commercial for a couple days, not even including the edit, right? Like, sometimes these bigger agencies, sometimes for a 30-second commercial, they go out and film for a day and edit it. Could be well over $20,000 for a couple days of work. It's not the realm I live in, but it's there. So Yeah, I think it sounds like the pricing is a little scary to you, and that's kind of a belief problem, in my opinion, right? Like, oh, I don't believe they would do this. Well, it's one way to find out, you know, send it. To be kind of frank, we just met. I don't want to be a dick, but like, send it, man. Like, let's go.
That's something that's resonated with me on your channel as well, is the optimism, and because you know I've been very fortunate enough in my life to lose everything and build myself back up, so I'm not really scared of taking risks and chances. But I do worry about the guys that are very nervous about, because then it starts becoming a bit of a cutthroat situation. But just quickly, I wanted to ask you this on just on that. What is? I mean, you've obviously got a lot of experience behind YouTube and all that sort of stuff. What is an ideal video length for the longer versions of platform or longer platform versions? Because yeah, I was uploading to Carbon TV, and then I was uploading to YouTube, and there's never really been anything out there for the most ideal length episode.
The reason I don't put a length on anything is because it totally depends on how interesting it is. It could be an hour long if it's interesting. I've seen some 22-minute videos that could have been done in 3 minutes, right? Like, the reason there's no set timer is because we don't know if it keeps your attention for an hour, amazing. If it's 3 minutes and it's absolutely a slammer, amazing. But it's the ones that are 20 minutes that could have been summed up in 3 minutes that really get me, or are an hour long and could have been done in 20 minutes. And so I do think, if we talk about time specifically, that there is a little bit of a comeback for the longer form hunts. I think we went from long form to shorter, and now I feel like we're switching that and kind of going back out to the longer. But it just depends on how interesting it is. And that's about the only answer I can give you. I do think people are watching the longer form now, with especially like YouTube being hooked to most TVs these days, in the States at least. And, you know, they can sit down and research videos, and Sunday evening watch them, or, you know, Saturday morning getting up early with the kids, throwing a hunting show. But yeah, length. And for me, when I'm editing, I always in the back of my mind say, who cares? Who cares? Meaning, is what I'm building good? Like, would anyone care about this? It might matter to me personally, which is where guys get caught up, because sometimes they like seeing themselves on camera. They like watching themselves talk. But at the end of the day, if you're going to put it out there where you want other consumers to consume the full-length video, you need to be from a mindset of like, who cares? Is this talking segment relevant? You know, as I just said that sentence, does anyone care? Yeah, they do care, because you're talking about setting it up for this evening hunt. Okay, cool, then let's keep it in. But it's the rambling and the I mean, like, God, there's so many shows that are a 30-minute show on YouTube that see one animal the entire time and don't kill anything, which is fine, but like, dude, this could have been 2 minutes, 3 minutes, right? But it's just a lot of talking heads. It's a lot of the common ones. It's like, it's just a lot of talking. Yeah.
You put that video on the other day, and I was like, this just killed my freaking dreams. Is about, what's it, driving in a truck, and you shouldn't do a lot of talking in your truck and all that sort of stuff. I watched that video.
Filming in the truck, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was
I don't mind talking in the truck, you know, but go ahead.
Yeah,
sorry.
and talking about on your way to the hunt and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, man, I've just bought this suction cup. It's going to stick to my windscreen so I can film myself talking. But anyway, Nick,
hold on. I don't mind talking in the truck, okay? I just don't want a 5-minute ramble about what's going to happen. You can talk for 30 seconds, get a good talking segment, and be done filming the travel segment in under 45 seconds, okay? Travel segments are the killer, man. Everyone wants to film pumping gas, going to the gas station, eating McDonald's, and it's like, dude, just nobody cares, man. Let's like get to the woods where we all love it. So, rant over. Sorry.
I, I often look at my YouTube analytics and I'm like, some of the, like, especially like if you've just released an episode, the guys, I don't know, it seems like it's a South African thing. Um, but guys will often just fast forward or just click through until they see the kill shot. And I'm like, but I've told such an epic story. So maybe I just need to look at those analytics a little bit better and just say, oh, here's where I need to improve on, and this is what I need to maybe get rid of all the hogwash and shit like that. But well, what is
Yeah.
it?
Who
What
cares,
in
right?
your first? What's up?
I said, who cares, right? That's the mentality. Like,
Yeah.
does anybody care about this? It's a good one.
In your opinion, is there any platform that us as South Africans are maybe missing, or is YouTube just the king of all kings? I mean, it's just something we're gonna have to stick with.
What's the goal
Well, again,
of posting the
like I
video?
said, well, Nick, it's such a difficult question to answer because
Are we posting on YouTube to try to get clients? Are we posting on YouTube to get followers? Are we trying to grow the YouTube channel, right? Like these are all different goals. So what's
but
the
I,
goal with
I,
YouTube?
I think that's a great question. And if I had to answer it, I would say my three main goals would be number one, to build my brand on who I am as an individual and what I can showcase out in the field, what I'm very passionate about through experiences and authenticity and empathy. Number two, it would be to hopefully one day utilize the storytelling to evolve the hunting industry into becoming more like the American model, where it is lucrative to make your money off your hunts and your personal stuff. And then lastly, number three is obviously to advertise what we do, your business, to try and get new clients, because there's a lot of clients out there that I've booked through my outfitting business that have resonated with me as an individual, through my
Yeah.
personality and through some of the hunts I've done. I've got a gentleman coming out next year who's going to be hunting only feather deer, and that came purely from my feather deer episodes. So I think those are the goals. But from our side, we only are accustomed to YouTube. I've been very fortunate to be introduced to Carbon TV, but since they've come up with the paid prescription, and you have to, it's
Yeah.
becomes very
Carbon's not a,
difficult.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
I was just curious on that side of the world. Is there any other platforms out there that we could maybe look at and catapult us in the right direction?
I think for long form, probably not. You've got like the Vimeo and stuff like that, but that's more kind of professional, trying to show off your work. It's not, a lot of guys don't really go search that. I think YouTube for your long form, and then promote your long form with short form on socials and pushing it to the YouTube channel, is the route I would go for now, for long form content. There's not really any other great channels for that. It's just kind of, and YouTube allows hunting and it doesn't block anything out. It's, the guidelines still accept that, which is nice. But the long form is great, but then take that long form, chop up those episodes, put it on your socials, and then point to your YouTube channel. Like, I don't know if you're using a ManyChat integration where it's like, comment the word YouTube and I'll send you the link, right? And then when they comment YouTube, an automation DMs them a link to the YouTube channel. That's one way you can help kind of grow that too. Like for me with the podcast clips, if they comment podcast, it sends them a link to Spotify and Apple automatically. Like I don't have to touch it. And so if you're trying to grow that following on there, pushing it from Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whatever's your best bet there.
I've got a funny feeling I'm going to be picking your brain for a long time, so I do
Let's
apologize in
do it.
advance about all
Oh,
the
it's good,
all
man.
the questions that are going to be coming
My
up
next
on
meeting's
this.
at 3. You got 3.5 hours, okay?
um, Nick, so into the fun part of the podcast.
Sure.
This is one I'm very very
We're not
curious
having fun
about.
yet? Come on, man.
Yeah, no, I'm having loads of fun. I'm super pumped up about this. But yeah, and now how I want you to answer these sort of questions is, tell us what you're currently using, and then play devil's advocate on the other side, and you just coming into the industry, you're starting out. What is the entry level you would buy without breaking the bank? But also, so let's start off with camcorders or DSLRs.
Mirrorless right now, SLRs, yeah.
Okay, so what are you currently using?
A Sony A7S Mark III.
And what would be the perfect entry level camera to do the work that is needed out?
Depends on the skill level. If you're brand new, you may want to get a camcorder camera to start, cheaper one. If you are brand new, but you're like, I'm actually going to do this, I want to learn this at a high level, purchase a mirrorless or a DSLR. I think the Sony like A6700, or there's so many different versions. I actually hate this question because there's like 12 right answers to what's an entry level camera that you could do. And it's like, dude, I don't know. There's so many. And then there's ones that come out yesterday that I don't know about. But I would say this, when you look, let's talk specs. Let's not talk specific cameras. If you're looking for a newer camera to film hunts, have something with a great low light capability. Have something that will shoot at least 4K right now, preferably 4K 120 with the higher frame rate. If you can do 4K 160, or if you can do 1080 at 120, great. Find something that films in a flatter color profile like S-Log2, S-Log3, C-Log, whatever. And color bit depth, I'd like 422 10-bit on that. Now, if that's speaking Chinese to you, that's fine. But that 422 10-bit with a 1-inch sensor on the camera is going to be your best bet for quality. Now, like the Sony A7S III, man, I haven't ordered a brand new one in a long time, but I think it's under like $3,000. And some of the other Sony mirrorless ones that are good, that kind of fit those specs, are right under like $1,500, $1,800, something like that. But now, if you only have $1,800 to spend and like that's max, you probably want to look at like a camcorder with a built-in, 20x zoom, something like that, that has like the built-in XLRs that you can, plug XLR mics into. There's a lot of answers for that, but I'm not necessarily concerned with a guy that buys a new camera about the camera. I'm concerned whether he can tell a story with the camera. So if I look at hiring some new guy, I don't necessarily, the equipment comes into play, but I'm looking at, can he tell a story? And if you can't tell a story yet, buy a camera, buy a $1,000 camcorder, go out and film a hunt from beginning to end, and tell me if you can tell a story with that camera. Because everything else gets easier after that. The equipment doesn't matter necessarily at that point. Storytelling does, to me, if I'm going to hire someone.
I like that answer because it simplifies a lot of questions that get asked out there. But my next one, and this was another reel that pissed me off quite a bit.
Good.
And I mean this
off my page? All right.
On your page. I mean this in the utmost respect.
Oh, you're fine, man. That's good. Yeah.
Lenses. So
yeah.
Let's start off with shooting a rifle hunt. What sort of lenses are you packing in your gear bag?
Was it the video that said I don't like the 70 to 200 filming hunts? Yeah. Was it that one?
Because I've literally just bought one.
I'm so sorry. But I still stand by my comment. Okay, so this is where most people are like, Nick, this is super weird. So my lens selection, I run a Sony, so you would imagine that I'd be shooting with some sort of Sony lens. My main lens that I film every hunt with is a Canon 28 to 300 L series lens. It's a trombone style lens that goes from 28 all the way to 300. And I've been using it for, oh my gosh, years and years and years. And it's by far the best run and gun lens I have found. Now, that lens is great for most archery hunts. It's great for most rifle hunts. If you said, Nick, if you film a rifle hunt, is that the only lens you're carrying? No. On the rifle hunt specifically, I do have a bigger lens. I use the Sony 200 to 600 with a 2x doubler. So, and that 2x doubler usually ends up staying on that camera or on that lens all the time. So, which ends up putting it to a 4 to 1200. And
Nick, sorry, just explain what's that doubler. I've never heard of it before.
they call it like a 2x converter. So basically, it takes a focal range. I don't know
Okay.
if I have it sitting here. I don't. It takes the 200 to 600, and you basically on the actual mount side, you hook another converter into it, a doubler they call it, and then that now doubles the focal range of that lens. So if you have the 70 to 200, if you put a doubler on the back of that sucker, a good one, now all of a sudden your focal range doubles on that lens. And then I won't give you so much flack about using it, okay? So that would be a good option too. And they have like 1.4 teleconverters, they have 2x teleconverters, they have a bunch of different options. I will say don't skimp price on the teleconverters because the cheaper ones do lose a lot of quality. Now, the downside of the 2x converters is it also doubles your f-stop. So it takes my camera and bumps it all the way to an f13, which would be a problem, but I shoot with the A7S III, which has what they call dual native ISO, meaning it's got a low base and it's got the high base. So I can crank that all the way up to 1200 or 12,800, which is the high base ISO, which is very good for low light, and it's a very clean image. So the f13 doesn't really concern me all that much because of the camera that I'm using it on. So that's my lens selection. You know, I'm not a fan of a 24 to 70 on that camera, and then having, you know, if you've got the other lens on your chest ready to go, great. But if it's not within arm's reach, you're going to get caught with your pants down of an animal coming out and being like, oh, you've been there a million times. Oh my God, right there, shoot him. And in under 7 seconds, that animal's dead. Okay, you're screwed with the 24 to 70 being locked on there. Some other good diverse lenses would be like I think Sony has a 24 to 240, something like that. I think someone else commented, which I had not used, Tamron's got like a 35 to 1.8. I don't remember what it was, but if we would take specifics away, I want a diverse lens on that camera that's still somewhat decent quality. I do not want a 24 to 70 sitting on that to get caught with my pants down on it, because you've got one shot to get that kill shot right, and it can happen anytime, as you know. And if you don't think it can happen anytime, you haven't hunted long enough.
On the lenses, something we've been doing wrong with a lot of my hunts is zooming. So I do a lot of archery at the moment, and one of the coolest things is, especially like in post-production, when you edit, is slowing the footage down.
Yeah.
And actually watching the trajectory of the arrow fly and then penetrate the animal slowly. We haven't been able to capture that. And now I remember when I filmed, I was a professional hunter and I was filming for Tom Miranda when he did the black wildebeest with me.
Cool.
And he always used to say to me, only zoom in 30%, he can do everything else post-production. And it never really worked for me. It hasn't worked for me. So just a tip, I would like you to maybe elaborate on this. What can I do to get that nice trajectory of the arrow and, you know, slow penetration and all that sort of stuff?
What camera are you using right now?
The Sony FX30. And then with the lens is my 70 to 200 Tamron lens.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so that slow trajectory of that arrow all has to do with your frame rate at the time of the kill shot. So, you know, the whole thing of like filming it in 24, or are you guys doing 25 there, or are you doing normal 24 frames, 30 frames, or are you doing some other international
25,
spec to it?
Yeah,
25.
Yeah.
So I don't know on that end, like, if you said, Nick, how do we do that today? Well, you have the FX3 or FX30?
30.
30,
FX30.
okay. I don't know the specs on that one. But the kill shots that they can get that are usually recorded at a higher frame rate. So, you know, if I know the kill's about to come, I'll switch to 4K 120, and then I'll start filming in that frame rate, because then in post-production, you convert that frame rate back to, for me personally, 24 frames, and that's how you end up getting that slow-mo with it. So you're never going to get that cool, crisp slow-mo if you recorded it in 25 frames and then go in like Premiere Pro and, you know, drag it out and slow it down 1,000%. It's just never going to look good because it wasn't filmed at a high frame rate. So Those cool epic ones where you see, the bullet tracer and the arrow going with the lighted knock, those are all filmed at, you know, 240 frames a second, 120 frames a second, or 60 frames a second. I would recommend 120 or higher to
And
get
then
that
zooming
crisp.
in as much as you can on the animal.
Yeah, it kind of depends. I mean, I don't. If the animal takes up a third, maybe even a half, but it kind of depends because I hate losing it at the impact. If it goes in and hits them, and then all of a sudden I'm too punched in and they like run out of frame, I don't really like losing the animal like that. So I like framing it where there may be half of the screen, something like that. I don't want to be super, super punched in. Now, if it's like a certain look I'm going for, where like I want to just watch this arrow bury into him and there's like a different goal to the kill shot. Maybe we're focused on the arrow brand or, the bullet impact. And yeah, I might zoom in more. But a lot of the times, you're anticipating that animal running as soon as they get hit, and it can happen really fast, obviously. So I don't zoom in super, super far where they're like the entire screen. I might make sure they're like half the screen, 3/4. So I have a little bit of leeway room when they run that I can keep them in the frame.
Okay.
Or if they're close enough, if it's archery and they're like 30 yards, sometimes that over the shoulders, so much fun. Where you can get the hunter in the foreground, like the old, Jim Shockey kill shot style. The hunter's in the foreground,
Yeah.
the animal's here, you're back here. You can see that arrow come out of the foreground of the hunter's bow, whatever, and then hit the animal. Those are like the best ones you can possibly get, and sometimes the hardest to capture. But if you can do it, do it.
How much how much does good footage make a difference? You said something earlier, like just put stuff out there and just are we sometimes as hunters, especially myself, like I said, I want to capture it in a certain way. Do we not overthink things sometimes, and instead of just actually just filming the whole hunt and trying not to complicate things too much? I mean, I'm sure you pretty much the same, but it's because it's your profession. You're very critical on how things get shot, how the story is getting told. But are we just not overthinking the process, and we should just go with the flow type up?
I have a couple thoughts on this. One is I've been there plenty of times where you put out this like beautiful cinematic story, this beautiful film. You put it out to the world, and it does like okay. And then you've got some guy's hunt that he filmed on a damn cell phone that's 15 minutes long, and he just smoking the views on it and crushing it. And you're like, why am I working so hard to do this? Why do I have all this professional gear when half the time the cell phone footage is getting more views? And I think that's one way to look at it. May not be the best way, but I also think it depends on the show, because there's a lot of shows out there that want the look and aesthetic and the cinematic style. Like, we're going to tell a cinematic story, and that's how we need to shoot it for the show. And then you've got the ones that are like, just film what happens. We're going to have fun. It's a fun show. There's no pressure. And then like, we're going to put it out. So if I had to pick, I like the cinematic better. I like the storytelling better. I like building almost a mini movie out of it versus the ones that, you may not try as hard on. I'm almost stressful at the ones that we're not trying hard on. Like, if their show is a very loose style and they don't want it produced at all, it like makes me anxious because it's like, man, we're missing this, or we should have went and redid this. And they're like, no, we're good. Just keep going. And you're like, whew, it's tough. So I think it just depends on what the final product is, right? Like, what's the goal of the film, which a lot of people don't think about. They think, I'm just going to go film a hunt, and we could wing it. But what's the end goal with the film? Is it just to show your buddies? Is it to get hunting clients down in South Africa? Is it to attract sponsors and partnerships? Like, nobody thinks ahead to the final day you drop it what the point of the film is. Is it your own personal story that you just want to get out? Like, what's the goal? Work backwards from that, and that's how you should shoot the project. And then who's your audience? Is your audience a high-end hunter that pays $10,000 plus for a hunt, his guns, whatever? Or is he a guy that's hunted a tree stand his whole life, sitting in the Midwest that, had a normal job his whole career and retired and just likes going out in the woods? Who are we talking to? Who do we want to resonate with? Something people don't think about ever, usually, before a film starts.
Yeah. I've got a question on that, but before we get into it, before we
Go for it,
ask
man.
that question, just getting back to the gear, audio.
Oh, yeah, is that what we were talking about?
Audio. What? I had an interesting experience with audio, and I'll tell you what it is before you can answer and advise on what you currently are using and what we should be using. For the longest period of time, I've been using DJI mics, Bluetooth, clipped in, the standard, so that they could hear me whispering to the client. And then I always thought if I could tell the story as the hunter with the mic in here, I could whisper and it would come across. But like I mentioned, a couple of last year, October, November, I did that documentary, and they used shotgun mics. And I tell you what, the experience of watching that episode was a lot different. A lot different. I didn't feel like I was strapped to somebody's chest pack for the 15 minutes. I could hear the birds in the background. I could hear the footsteps. Is that something that's important in the storytelling? And how do you navigate around that? I see you've got the Sony connectors that, I mean, you must have a hectic setup.
Yeah. Okay, the first question is sound important in the film? Is that what you want to ask?
Yeah. So how important is sound? And I mean, obviously there's an obvious answer to that, but and then how can or what equipment would you utilize to try and captivate the story as much as possible?
Yeah, so sound is super important, and it's one thing as I got older editing more films that are like, man, I need to do some sound design on this. And so let's start with the field setup. So you've maybe seen my videos that would probably also piss you off that I am not a fan of the DJIs. They are not my favorite mic because they are rechargeable. I also don't like the big fuzzy thing sticking out here, and it just personally drives me nuts. But the reason I don't mechanically like it is the rechargeable aspect of it, because I've seen them go down. Guys have to recharge them mid-shoot, and it's just not a fun, like you're just losing audio for an hour because you have to recharge a mic versus swapping double A's. So my setup is to go into like a mirrorless camera like you have. Is I have a audio preamp, and what that preamp does. So what this preamp does is the XLRs. So this sits on top of my camera, and what the preamp does is the XLR mics that I run, which are the Sony UWP, UPW wireless mics. They actually click into the XLR inputs here, okay? And then on this side, you've got all your settings and adjustments. So you've got, which line do you want? Do you want channel 1 only? Do you want channel 1 and 2? You've got your attenuation, your low-cut filter, all that fun stuff. But what this allows me to do is take a line out of this, run it directly into the mic input of my camera, and now I have just successfully hooked up XLR mics to my mirrorless or DSLR camera, which allows me to run professional mics, good sounding mics, and AA style mics to that camera that isn't really equipped to do that. So it's called an audio preamp. This one's the Tascam CA-XLR2D, it's called. And so that's part one to running professional mics for the DSLR, which a lot of guys struggle with. Part two to that is, do you run wireless lavs? Do you run a shotgun? What does that setup look like? Most of the time I have both set up on my camera. So especially if we're with a guide and a hunter, I'll usually just run 2 wires on them because I want the best audio quality possible. I want the whispers when they're talking about the stock. I want as much natural banter as I can possibly get. And me standing 10 feet away with a shotgun mic, I'm going to miss it, especially the whispers. That's the main reason you put the lavs on them. Let's say I have either 1 hunter or 3 hunters. I'll put a lav on the main guy, and then I'll run that shotgun mic to pick up everyone else. And one piece of advice I didn't take for many years is I didn't buy a quality shotgun mic, and I wasted years not doing that. And I would highly recommend spending that $700, $800, $900 plus to get a quality shotgun mic, because it's insane what they can do. So that's my audio setup in the field. Now, if we would take that back to post, and we want to hear the birds chirping and the walking and all that, if I can't pull the quality audio off my mics, I will actually add that in post myself. Like, I have a whole sound effects library of like clothes rustling together, so I can add that in when we're walking. I have a bunch of different footstep pacing that I can add in there underneath. I have different ambient sound
you recorded yourself.
Some of it, but some of it's just off sound effect libraries too. Now in the field, if you're like, hey, I know I need good footstep audio, I know I need good nat sound, you could just go record it, right? Like, just understand, like, you can make an editor's note and be like, hey, these next 10 shots are all going to be nat sound, right? Like, some guys will set out a camera just out in the woods and hit record for 2 minutes, and that's their nat background sound for the hunt, and they can just keep that as a track underneath. But I like to try to build out the sound more and more customly as I've gotten into higher end films. I like, adding in the footsteps a little bit, adding in birds chirping, adding in that kind of wind background-ish a little bit if it's blowing, and try to just match what's going on. And you don't realize how important it is until you add it in and you can like immerse yourself. I think that's a big part of it, is sound helps you immerse yourself, right? It's one of our senses. And so if one of our senses isn't activated while we're watching it, it's not as immersive for us, because we're, hearing other things going on, and we're maybe paying attention to something else. But if you can hear what you think the hunter hears and be in that moment, it's a lot more present for the viewer, you could call it.
There's so much, yeah, there's so much value out of that I'm trying to dissect it, because I never saw sound as being as important as how you've just mentioned it. And now, listening to you talk about it, that's exactly what was happening in that episode that I was a part of. Is you became immersed into it, and you were really, it was like you said, it was your sensories that were activating. And yeah, it's a very unique way of looking at things. But on that topic, and shifting now just quickly to post, I think it's a whole nother rabbit hole we'll get into about what sort of post platforms do we use and all this sort of stuff. But something I've seen as a bad habit creep into the industry here in South Africa, not so much in America. You guys do an exceptional job, but here in South Africa, is that guys don't color grade correctly, and when they do color grade, it's terrible stuff.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I'm very, very bad at it, and I often find myself watching a shit ton of YouTube videos trying to explain to me how color grading works on every single episode that I edit. So how important is color grading in trying to captivate that story you tell?
Oh, man. Again, think of it. It's another sense, your eyes, right? And like,
yeah.
Think of like, I don't even know how to explain this correctly. Like, you ever just show up in like a hotel or a restaurant and you're like, man, I don't even know why I like this place, but like, this is a really nice place. And what you don't realize is that it's clean, it's organized, it looks nice, like it's not sloppy, right? Like, you don't even know why you like it, but when you walk into that, or like a gas station or something, like, this is a really nice place, and you're like, I don't even know why that is. People are doing that constantly throughout the day. They're doing it while they watch your film. Like, they don't even realize why they think the shot is so pretty or beautiful. It might be a sunset, but like, if you film a sunset on a cheap camcorder versus a high-end mirrorless camera, like, there's two different sensations you're looking at there. So color to me is extremely important. And are you recording, what color profile on the FX30 are you recording in?
S-Log 3.
Yeah.
If that's what you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, yep. So, yeah, log footage, guys really struggle with. And I think the biggest thing they're not doing is there's actually a couple, I must go through two processes. I'll actually go color correct the footage first. I'll add a base LUT to that footage to, like, take the contrast and increase it, and the shadows and the blacks down a little bit, and I'll kind of get it looking normal first. And then once I do that with every clip, then I'll go back and I'll find a color grade that I like for the look and the feel of the show that I'm doing. So I'll actually add a base LUT to it to make it look back normal. And then the beautiful thing with S-Log3 is it fits, 15 or 12 different stops of footage all in that color profile. So the highlights aren't blown out, the shadows aren't blown out. And once you've got it color corrected and looking kind of like a normal shot, then you can add your grade to it and push it a little bit, which is why what we talked about earlier, the 422 10-bit is super important that you record in, because that's when you're going to start to push those limits of the color profile is in post. So if I take S-Log3 footage, I have an old LUT that I've used, and it depends. There's 3 base LUTs I use. It's if I'm exposed 1 stop over, if I'm exposed 2 stops over, or if I'm exposed 3 stops over, I'll add that one to that clip, and it immediately like darkens it, contrasts it, and it looks normal. And then I'll do that for the whole show, make sure the white balance look good, and then I'll go back and I'll add an adjustment layer on top of the whole track of footage, and I'll find a LUT that looks pretty good clip to clip, and I will add it into that adjustment layer so it goes over the whole episode. And then if I need to tweak certain clips after that, I can just, hit the slice tool and then adjust that clip individually. But one major thing I see with S-Log3 footage that guys don't do is they're not crushing the blacks and the shadows enough, and it still looks very plain. Like it's not a lot of, flat, exactly. It's not contrasty at all. So adding that base LUT to get the contrast, to get the shadows down, the blacks, and looking normal, and then grading it is my go-to process. But yeah, when I watch an intro, there's a show that I shoot for that goes to a post house, and the post house is not good at editing log footage, and so they'll build episodes and videos out of it, and you're like, ugh, like this does not look good. Like this is bad, but is what it is, man. And so it's the base is the biggest key to that. The color grade should be almost minimal or simplistic, I should say. And then your hard work's at the beginning of that clip. So.
Yeah. Nick, what's the one bit of equipment that you just can't go without when you're out in the bush?
Probably the one I'm actually filming off of right now. I'm filming off a DJI Osmo 3, Osmo Pocket. It's
no way. Are you really using them?
Right now, yeah. Mm-hmm. But in the
I've been
field,
so
I use
conflicted.
it. Sorry, in the field, I use it. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. I call it my little secret weapon. I don't use it very often, but it's got its own sort of skill that I utilize it with. If we are sprinting, it's a very good one to just pop out. It's its own little gimbal. I hit record, and that footage, and it records in D-Log. So it's got log. It records in 10-bit 422, and it has a 1-inch sensor. So it looks really good and can color grade and mix with the Sony clips pretty seamlessly. So I use that I call it my little secret weapon. And it's always I have like a chest vest that I wear, and it's always sitting in a pocket right here. Because especially like driving in the back of the truck, if you got a client on a high rack, it's really nice to get that just buttery smooth footage. If we're crawling anywhere on a stalk where it's hard to film with that main camera, then I just whip that Osmo out. And, as we're crawling on our elbows and hands and knees, I have it in one hand, and I can at least capture the footage raw and real. If the scenario is dangerous, sheep hunts, some mountain hunts where it's like, I need both hands to cross this area. Otherwise, I'm out. I got to put the main camera in my backpack, and I'll film, the climb with the Osmo. And then when it's safe, I'll bring the main camera back out. And, it's pretty rare that happens. But I have it with me to, horseback. A lot of horseback hunts, too, in the saddle are really nice. Because, you're just riding along like this, and it's kind of hard to handhold. So I'll have my main camera with me on horseback trips, but I'll also have the Osmo to just get some buttery smooth riding footage, of that person. So that's kind of my main scenario I use it in.
So now,
hold on, I got one more. My favorite one, which would apply to you. The coolest place I ever put it is on a water hole in South Africa because I can control it from my phone and the head tilts and pans. So I got an elephant coming into the water hole and I followed it with the Osmo in the tree and it went from here all the way into the water hole and drank. And I was able to rotate it because I have it on my phone. It's got a little joystick on the app and you're just pivoting. So like water hole footage is so freaking cool. Putting it in the decoys, like turkey decoys or something like that, super cool because you can adjust the head. And so it's a game changer, man. I love that little camera.
So now, this is where I am. I'm conflicted. I reached out to DJI in South Africa a couple of weeks ago, and they're pretty keen to jump on board. But so I was like, there was a toss-up between the Action 6 and the Osmo. And I'm so glad you said that now because I was always leaning towards the Osmo. But why did you choose that over an action camera?
Two different utilities. So the Action 6 would be fine for probably some of that footage. I like the tilt and pan option for it, that I can move the head. I like the gimbal option. Now, am I going to strap this to, a selfie stick and put it underwater and film some stuff? No. Am I going to strap it to, something, like the Action 6, the GoPros are all great for like strapping it to something and being able to really beat it up, right? You could put it on a tractor clearing brush or something and, you could have sticks and everything, just hammer that thing in it and it's fine and it's alive. The Osmo would probably snap off, right? So it's got two different utilities for me. I want something that looks good, films wide, and can be steady in times of chaos. So the Action 6 probably would still work for that, but the only kicker with the Osmo is I can remotely control the head on it. So it's nice that I can move camera angles. If we're like in a ground blind or something and I want to switch, from this angle to this angle or get the tilt a little different, like I can go and adjust that from my phone. So two different utilities. I have a, was it Ace Pro 2 or something like that? So I have I have GoPros, I have all that stuff that comes with me, but that is the only camera that actually sits on my chest ready to go in any scenario. And that one you talked about would be probably fine to do the same. I'd just rather have something versus not have something in a scenario where it's hard to film with my main camera.
So in simple words, you're telling me I need to go and spend more money and buy both of them?
No, not necessarily. No, I mean, if you've got, if you film a lot of underwater stuff, or if you want to strap it to something that it might get destroyed, sure, go with the Action 6. But if you're looking for steady footage in chaos, go with the Osmo or something like I said for the water hole. Or it's a cool secondary camera.
Nick, something that came up in one of the questions you answered a little bit earlier, and I had it down here and I was going to ask you the question, but seems that you guys are a lot more used to and working with companies that side. I'm trying to find the right way to word this question, but for the longest period of time, I realized that you need some sort of, maybe not financial, but some sort of support from brands, right? Going forward in your career. And the easiest way to do that is to promote them on your social media and through some of the video footage you do, because that's very valuable to brands. Is there a way, as I want to say as a filmmaker, but I also want to say as a professional hunter, and let's use the word, I hate the word influencer, but let's use the word influencer in the hunting space. Is there a particular way that you can go about doing so without devaluing yourself? And what I mean by devaluing yourself is that I did a lot of footage on brands for no cost whatsoever, and then advertised for them on my social media, and only to realize that I did myself more harm than anything else. So is there a process to approaching brands that can help you on your hunting expeditions going forward?
This is a tough one. I remember a conversation with the marketing director of one of the major rifle scope companies, and he says that he gets hit up 50 plus emails a day, people asking for sponsorships. So I think what you need to do now more than ever is you need to provide more value than anyone else in the marketplace. And that might be doing more free work for them to start. You know, if you don't want to post it on your own page, send it to them directly. But part two to that is proximity to those people. There's a great quote I like that says, proximity is power. So if you want to get in the room with these people or, you know, get deals with them, what rooms are they frequenting? Where are they going? Where are they spending time? You know, how can you kind of get in the room with these people and meet them and shake hands and they get to know you, right? Because 100 emails isn't near as good as a face-to-face interaction and a handshake. Now, you being where you're at, you probably don't want to hear that as the news, but it's just so convoluted these days. And then a lot of guys that come to them don't have a package or anything. They just want to come to them for free gear or get paid, but they have no production kit that they sent them that like, hey, if we do this deal at 10K, I want a $20,000 product allowance. I'm going to film you a 30-second commercial. You're going to get 10 social spots. You're going to get a feature in our next film. You're going to get, right? Like, they just want to be sponsored by it, which is a horrible approach because all you're doing is going in and asking for something as a self-serving person versus trying to provide value for them first to kind of prove yourself. But it's cutthroat, man. And I think the easiest way now is to get in the rooms with those people and try to make relationships and get to know them. And like for camera guys specifically, I always preach going to the trade shows, going to conservation banquets, you know, buy the dinner tickets, sit across from people you don't know, because you never know who you're sitting across from, and these face-to-face interactions, what they can lead to. Like I said, the in-person handshake is worth more than 100 cold emails. Doesn't mean that the emails don't work. Of course they do. But there's a right way and a wrong way to approach it. And now with people having such easy access to the companies to email them wanting stuff, it's way harder to set yourself apart on that. It's probably not the answer you wanted, but what I'm telling you is you need to think outside the box and you need to set yourself apart. And you being another hunting show that just wants a cooler sponsor or a rifle sponsor isn't going to cut it anymore. You either have a relationship or your show needs to be way different with a different story and a different message that resonates with their ideal customer.
With that being said, we've seen it evolve over the time about a lot of these outdoor companies. Kuyu is a big one. You mentioned Kuyu. There's a couple of others. They call it pro staff or field staff or ambassadors. All these sort of things. They got these fancy ways of labeling these individuals, and all you're essentially doing is getting a 20% discount off of a product that's
exactly.
marketed or marked up by 120%. Anyway, so but with that being said, is that a shift you've seen, especially in the film industry, where you're getting more of these hunters to come out and actually help them promote themselves to get, you know, click this link and get 20% off, and then the hunter gets the commission or whatever it is? Are you seeing more of that happen in the filming side of things?
What's happening now with the industry is the TV show money is being spent elsewhere. So a lot of the old OG TV shows, you know, they're getting cut year after year and money's getting taken away from them. And then these businesses are going to the, you know, affiliate programs or the pro staff, right? And so they're taking what they could spend $50,000 on a TV show sponsorship, and they're taking that money and giving it to people who will do social work for little to no money. They're doing it for maybe the quote-unquote influencer side, but when they start sponsoring influencers, the influencers are now acting almost like a production company because, like you said, okay, they send you product, now we have to do sponsor shoots with this, and instead of spending, you know, 100K on an agency to go out and do all this content, now they're almost like the influencers are acting as a video production and media company to produce content for them at a rate they could never pay a full-blown agency to do that. And that is this massive shift of taking TV show dollars, going to the social world, spreading that out, and then even worse for the industry, which is, I mean, it's fine. I really don't judge however they want to do it because people are happy when people are happy. It is what it is. People are stoked to get a free set of camo from QU if they do 3 pieces of content for them, 4 pieces, right? If you've got 50,000 followers and QU's like, hey, we'll send you, you know, $5,000 and cue you if you do, 10 different videos for us, blah, blah, blah. Like, why wouldn't the business do that? Why wouldn't QU do that, spread that out to all these other people versus put their eggs in one basket on a TV show that really that side is kind of dying down anyways. So it's almost like the influencer market is now a video production market with a face to it. It's kind of how it's going now. It's very interesting, but it's an easier buy for the companies because they're not, spending $50,000 on a TV show that may or may not be producing it. And it's extremely tough to track the analytics coming off a TV show. Unless you have on a checkout form, what TV show did you hear about us from? And you had list every single one you're a part of, you're never going to track it. They've got, of course, like the back-end website tracking if they came from your website. But most TV show host websites suck, or they don't have one. And so they're going into a place where they can now track the analytics. They can track their ad spend. Was this person a good one to actually, put money behind? Did they move the needle for us? And it's, more lines in the water across the industry. And through my eyes, that's what's happening. Because I get brought out on shoots to shoot all these products and then deliver it to them. So they might get a $10,000 contract or a $20,000 contract to shoot, 5 tech videos and a commercial. Oh my God, if you hired a full-blown production company to do that, it'd be 50, 60,000 plus. You basically just got a 70% discounted production company to go out and shoot cool stuff with a face people are familiar with. So, or part 2 that to make my ramble even longer, they're partnering with actual camera guys and video production companies to promote the stuff. So I've had companies reach out, they'll send a gun. Hey, we want this gun featured in a rifle fundamentals video. So I go out, I write the video script, I find the host for the video, and then I shoot the content and send it back to them. So there's a good indication that it's coming off TV and actually going to content producers, not even influencers all the time, but like camera guys, video production guys as well. So it's kind of an interesting world to live in.
It's and the where that question stemmed from was, I'm not going to mention names in this side of things, but it was a TV hunt and it was with a specific individual, and he had a camera guy out, and it was a South African camera guy, and he still said, we were sitting around the dinner table, and he was like, I don't care how or how the hunt happens or how we go about things. I just need to get the animal and I need to get a certain shot on camera. And I asked him, I said, well, doesn't this take away a lot of the essence? And he said, since the TV numbers dropped drastically and they aren't getting approached by a lot of the channels and the promoters and all that sort of stuff as much as what they used to, they've become promoters themselves for the equipment that they now need to sell. Because he says the cooler the shot looks, the more I make off of that, because the more they're clicking on my link, the more commission I'm earning. And I was really taken back by that, because I was like, well, in South Africa, majority of the equipment we use is all from America. So how the hell are we going to get some of that dough this side? But it was a very interesting dynamic that kind of unfolded. And then, in some ways, I was like, this is probably not the way the industry needs to go. But in the same sense, I was, different strokes for different blokes, right? If it's going to pay the bills, then why not do it, So I was just like, well, I have to respect that side of things,
Yeah, oh man, I should watch my mouth on this one, but it's stoked off a conversation that I had recently with a TV show host, and he said, I'm sick of selling my soul for such little money to do all these projects for brands. And that is the name of the game. How little can they pay you? How much content can you give them? And he came from like the old school era of, just here's a check for $50,000 to be on your TV show. And now they're having to do social contracts and content and certain posts per month and all this stuff. And here's the deal. You can either complain about it or you can hop on the bandwagon and make some money doing it. And again, it goes back to the ethics thing. You do you. I may not agree with it. I get it. It's the same thing of like, okay, well, if you don't agree with high fence hunting versus normal hunting, you could have debates on that too. It doesn't. You do you, right? But doesn't mean we have to agree with every project that people are doing. It's just, and I don't know. It's just weird, man. It's sometimes you're at the mercy of the sponsor these days,
Yeah.
and they're always reevaluating dollars every year. And if you're not providing value to them and following certain requests or whatever, you know, they can start pulling money, and that's just how it goes. And they lose a $10,000 contract, a $15,000 contract. And it's big money, right? It's a lot of money for people, especially when you have a production budget that didn't change. So I don't want to get too negative on the industry. Most of it's pretty good, but it's just changing. And the guys that were used to the old ways that were done, that don't know how to pivot to the new ways that it's done, are struggling big time. And I get it, because it's twice or three times the work for the same money or less. And that's kind of where we are right now. But for the guys that are good with the camera and the content, you're like, I'll take it. Come on over here. You pay me 20 grand to go shoot that one video, right? Like, I mean, yeah, it's just the way it is, and you can complain about it and die with the times, or you can pivot and keep going. Is what it is, right? Yeah.
Adapt, and improve. Nick, I've had so much fun on this podcast, and
Yeah, man,
I
it's
can
been
definitely foresee plenty more that we will be able to do. But before we close off, I've got a couple of rapid fire questions, and then
Let's do it.
it's something I've started this year. It's PH Journals, part of, you know, as professional hunters, we go through difficult times, and depression's a real thing, and
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. You a long time away from the family, so part of the part of my ways of dealing with a lot of the hardships that's out in the field was journaling, and hence why PS Journals came about. So I'm going to ask you a question. I would like you to answer it, and then obviously when the show's over, I will send you a message, and you can ask a question for the next guest. But before we do
I
that,
love it.
let's jump into the rapid fire questions here. And I am going to kick it off. Bow or rifle? Film or hunt?
Film.
Sony or Canon?
Sony.
Favorite species to film?
Archery elk in the rut.
Bucket list animal right there. Favorite country to hunt in or film?
Canada.
Biggest hunting media pet peeve?
Mirrorless camera with a 24-70 with a 3.5 millimeter shotgun mic plugged in the top, and that's their main rig.
Trend you wish that left the hunting industry?
A what that wish I left? A trend?
A trend that you wish left the hunting industry?
Well, I don't know. Can I pass on that one? I don't really know. I'm going to take some thinking. I want to make it rapid fire. I'll pass.
Most underrated hunting content creator?
The okayest hunter.
Okayest hunter.
The okayest hunter.
Dream hunt to film?
Maybe like Kyrgyzstan or Tajikistan, some crazy hunt in there.
Ooh, like the Nubian ibex or something like that. One positive you can take from the hunting industry?
Some of the best people I've ever met are in that industry and continue to be in that industry.
The next set of rapid fire questions for the next guest is going to be a difficult one, because those are some good answers. Nick, take your time on this one. This one's, it's a goodie. When you're old and frail and you're looking back at your career, what do you hope people will say about the stories you have helped tell or you have been a part of?
I hope that I made a difference I hope that content I produced, films I released, um, video productions actually made a difference in people's lives and impacted them. Because if not, what the hell are we doing this for?
So true, so true, and that answer is a true testament to the person I've seen on the other side of the screen. Like I said, you've been a
Thank you, my friend.
hugely influential person. Not, I mean, just for the short period you've been a part of my career. So I'm truly grateful for all the content you put out there. Keep doing it. I promise you. I'm grateful, and I know there's thousands more of young individuals that are wanting to get into this industry that is just as grateful. So
Thank
Nick,
you, man.
I can't thank you enough for the incredible podcast, and I know and I hope we can definitely do this many, many more times. So
Yeah,
thank you.
I feel like we just got started and we're 2 hours into it, so we've got plenty more.
We've got so much more time, but my toes are freezing here in South Africa, and it's way past my bedtime. But again, I mean, for you to take time out of your busy schedule, it means the world to me. So thank you, and yeah,
Thank you,
all
man.
the best,
This
my
has been
friend.
super fun. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Appreciate you.
cool. Thanks, Nick.